Jake Miller wiped the dirt from his hands using an old rag, his palms throbbing after yet another exhausting shift in his small repair shop. On the outskirts of town, outside, the sky had taken on a gentle purple hue, the final light of Thanksgiving. Day slowly giving way to night, while most families were gathering around their dinner tables, carving golden brown turkeys and sharing moments of laughter. Jake remained under the dull buzz of his shop's worn-out fluorescent lights, wrapping up one last repair. Thanksgiving hadn't held much meaning for him in recent years. His parents were gone, his siblings lived too far to visit, and after his divorce, the holidays had become just another hurdle to get through. He had plans, if you could even call them that, to reheat some leftover pizza in his tiny apartment, and maybe watch a football game from seasons past. Nothing special, but at least he had work, and for Jake, that was something to be thankful for. Just as he pulled down the garage door, ready to call it a night, an old, battered minivan coughed its way into his driveway, the engine stuttering and smoke billowing from under the hood. Out of the driver's side stumbled a man, his face etched with panic and exhaustion. From the passenger side came a woman cradling a little boy in a too-thin jacket, his small arms clutching a worn teddy bear. Jake froze, a knot tightening in his chest. He was tired, bone-tired, but one look at the family, and he knew he couldn't just walk away. "Please," the man called out, his voice breaking. "We're stranded. Our car broke down on the highway. We tried calling for help, but no one answered. And it's Thanksgiving." Jake ran a hand through his messy hair, sighing deeply. Every part of him screamed for rest, but something softer inside stirred, a voice that reminded him what it felt like to need a break and have no one there to give it. He unlocked the garage door again, gesturing them inside. "Come in," he said gruffly. "Let's see what we can do." The family huddled in the tiny waiting room, gratefully accepting paper cups of stale coffee from the beat-up machine in the corner. Jake slid under the hood of the minivan, the freezing metal biting at his fingers. The situation was worse than he thought. The alternator was almost completely fried, and one of the belts had snapped clean through. A simple fix. Not tonight. Not with part stores closed for the holiday, and no one picking up the phone. Still silent, but he couldn't just leave them. He rummaged through his bins of salvaged parts, eventually finding a belt that might fit. With careful, steady hands, he patched together what he could. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The night growing colder, his stomach gnawed with hunger. He could almost hear the laughter of families echoing through town, smell the pies baking, the stuffing warming in ovens. But Jake stayed focused. He worked with quiet determination, his breath visible in the frigid air, refusing to let this family spend the night stranded. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the engine coughed back to life, a shaky, reluctant purr, but a heartbeat. Nonetheless. Jake wiped his hands again, grinning tiredly. "You're good to go," he said, his voice rough with fatigue. "Won't win you any races, but it'll get you home." The man pulled out his wallet, fingers fumbling as he tried to offer whatever cash he had. Jake shook his head firmly. "Forget it," he said. "It's Thanksgiving. Go home. Be with your family." The woman's eyes welled up with tears. She pressed her hand to her mouth, whispering a choked, "Thank you." The little boy looked up at Jake with wide, grateful eyes. Then, shyly, he handed him his teddy bear, as if offering the only treasure he had. Jake knelt down, ruffled the boy's hair gently, and pushed the bear back into his arms. "Keep it, buddy," he said with a soft smile. "Looks like he needs you." As the family climbed into their barely functioning minivan and disappeared into the darkness, Jake stood alone in the cold, his breath fogging the air, his heart unexpectedly warm. He had missed Thanksgiving dinner, missed the traditions he no longer had. But tonight, he realized he had found something even better, a reason to be thankful. Little did he know, his simple act of kindness on this lonely night would lead to a miracle he never could have. Imagine. Jake barely slept that night, the events of the evening replaying in his mind as he lay on his worn-out couch. There was a strange peace that settled over him, a rare feeling of having done something right, even if the world would never know. The next morning, he woke up early. He was sipping a lukewarm coffee when a sleek black car pulled up outside. Not the kind of car you usually saw in their little town. It gleamed, spotless, even in the muddy slush of the morning. Out stepped a man in a crisp suit, umbrella in hand, his polished shoes crunching softly on the gravel. He approached Jake's shop with purpose, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Jake wiped his hands on his jeans, confused, wondering if maybe someone was lost. "Jake Miller?" the man asked, his voice smooth but warm. "Yeah," Jake replied cautiously. "Can I help you?" The man extended a hand, offering a firm shake. "My name's Daniel Hartman. I work for the Carmichael Foundation." He paused, letting the name sink in. Jake blinked, not recognizing it, seeing the confusion on his face. Daniel chuckled softly. "You helped a family last night, stranded, broken down. You gave up your Thanksgiving to get them back on the road." Jake nodded slowly, still unsure where this was going. "That family," Daniel continued, "isn't just any family. The father is Richard Carmichael, one of the biggest philanthropists in the country. They were traveling incognito to visit one of their foundation's projects. They didn't want attention." Jake's mouth fell open slightly, his mind struggling to connect the dots. Daniel smiled kindly. "And they were so moved by what you did, they want to thank you." Before Jake could even respond, a second car pulled up, this one even larger, with dark tinted windows. Out stepped Richard Carmichael himself, his wife beside him, and the little boy now wrapped in a new, cozy jacket, safely cradled in her arms. They walked up to Jake, no bodyguards, no formality, just a family, still visibly touched. Richard extended his hand, gripping Jake's in a strong, heartfelt shake. "You didn't just fix our car," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You showed us what real kindness looks like. You reminded us what Thanksgiving truly means." Jake felt a lump rise in his throat, his usual gruffness falling away under the weight of it all. "We'd like to offer you a position," Richard continued. "Full-time mechanic for our foundation's outreach fleet, good salary, full benefits. You'd be helping us keep our mobile clinics and food trucks running, reaching thousands of people every year." Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. His calloused hands, the same ones that had spent years tightening bolts and changing oil, suddenly felt like they were meant for something greater, something with purpose. And Richard added, a twinkle shining in his eye, "We're also starting a grant in your name for struggling small-town mechanics. No one should ever have to give up everything just to do what's right." Tears welled up in Jake's eyes. For once, he didn't try to hold them back. He simply nodded, unable to find the words. The little boy, the one clutching the teddy bear, reached out his tiny hand and offered Jake a drawing he'd made. It was a picture of a smiling mechanic, a bright sun above him, and a big heart. On his chest, below it, in wobbly crayon letters, were the words, "Thank you for saving us." Jake accepted the drawing with trembling hands, his heart more full than it had been in years. In just one unexpected night, he had gone from a lonely man, with no family, no plans, no reason to celebrate, to someone with a future brighter than he ever imagined. Not because he asked for it, not because he looked for a reward, but because he chose kindness when it mattered most. As the careless team packed back into their cars, Jake stood quietly in front of his little garage. The wind carried away the last bitter chill of the season. He looked up at the cloudy sky, smiled softly to himself, and whispered, "Maybe Thanksgiving isn't just about turkey after all." And for the first time in a very long time, Jake Miller knew deep in his soul that he was exactly where he was meant to be.